Today's episode is going to be amazing. Talk about a wild ride, a wild journey from Mascot to mastery. I am so excited to have my good friend, new friend, Nate Welch on the show today to talk about how he went from being a mascot to taking that into mastery with all the leadership lessons that he learned along the way. Let's dive in to today's episode. Well, Nate, welcome to the show, my man.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, this is awesome. You know, we met pretty non-traditionally.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're going to get into that story. And hey, let's kick it off with that story right now.
Yeah.
How about that? So tell them, Nate, when was the first time you and I met?
Well, you and I met at the social meetup that we had when we were doing Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
Which was such a pleasure to be part of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we can talk a little bit about that journey because that was just fantastic. But when we met, it was so interesting because, you know, you get invited.
Yeah.
You're notified and asked if you would be one of those celebrities. And of course, you have to kind of check your email, right? Because you're like, hey, listen, not really at that, not a celebrity here, but happy to help if we can. So we go. And that's the first time I ever, you know, I have seen you, seen your promotions, and just been an admirer of what you're doing, especially in the health and fitness part, but didn't know you from Adam.
Yeah.
And that was that first time we met. And what was interesting was, so we meet each other there.
Yeah.
But we don't see each other throughout the whole process.
No.
We get paired up with our professional dancer.
Yep.
And then actually we kind of, for some fun competitive part, we don't talk to each other.
No.
We, you know, and in fact, I remember, this was funny because we would always try to compete on what kind of music we would be doing.
Yeah.
We didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
I remember one specific time you were rehearsing at Ballerina Studio.
Yeah.
We played different music loud so that you guys would think that we were playing something else just to try to get in your head. And we weren't sure. We're thinking, okay, if they walk by and they look in, they're going to think that we're doing like hip hop or something.
Yeah.
So we were playing like Chumbawamba,
I get knocked down. That's
just
funny.
because we were like, well, we don't want them to know that we're doing like this lyrical thing. So anyways, but it was so much fun because you have this competitive aspect and it really is for a great cause.
Yeah.
But what was so cool, and you know, you and I have talked about this, but where we met then at a ResGen retreat, a men's retreat. And again, you know, someone else was coordinating that because we ended up rooming together.
Yeah.
And
ended up being roommates.
Yeah.
I'd never met you before. That one night, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's your roommate. I'm like, this guy.
And I don't know if you're like this, but you know, when you're younger, you're in high school, college, you're traveling, you're used to kind of, you know, bunking up with other people, right?
Yeah.
When you become that adult professional, I always just kind of joke, be like, no, we don't room together. We're adults, right? So when you're at this men's retreat, all of a sudden it's, oh no, we're now bunking up.
Yeah. One queen bed.
I just felt safe.
there was two queen beds.
But yeah, no, you're right. And I mean, and so, but right away we just kind of kicked it off, and it was really cool because I mean. And anyone who knows you knows that you're just so genuine.
I appreciate
you
that.
kind of opened right up and just, you know, we chatted right away.
Yeah.
And again, in that one queen bed, I felt safe. No,
it's two.
That's right. We better.
You're spreading rumors.
I know this is but no. And that was so much fun to be able to get to know each other in that retreat, and then of course be sharing that experience. And honestly, it really made the night of the performance even more fun. And
it was for sure.
Right.
Because it felt like we already knew each other.
Yeah.
It felt like, which honestly, I can say now a friendship.
Yeah.
But it felt like the friendship started to form. And man, I always like talk to people like, when's the last time you've made a new friend? Mm-hmm. A lot of times people don't.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool being able to kind of have that connection go. I found out where you worked. Which is, I've never heard of it. So explain quick, where do you work? What do you do, Nate?
So I'm at Mailbox Money. We are a real estate development company. We do multifamily developments.
Okay.
You know, we really are focusing on helping to solve that modern workforce housing crisis that we have. I mean, the reality is, I mean, even in South Dakota, but almost anywhere in the country, housing is an issue.
Yeah.
Affordable housing is not only an issue on every level, but it's actually such an issue when it comes to really trying to figure out to define it, because that modern workforce affordable housing is a semantic of words that we really often struggle with. When we say affordable, is that affordable to individuals like you and I in the professional realm years into our development? Is it new individuals right out of college, new individuals right out of high school? Is it individuals who really are struggling on their luck and down on some of the resources? What is affordable? And so that is a semantic that is often tough to define.
Yeah.
What we are working on really is that modern workforce housing for those professionals that so many businesses in Sioux Falls area, in South Dakota, and in the region are trying to recruit to fill those jobs.
Yeah.
And so we are working really, really hard. And what's neat is we've got that really dialed in on how we've been able to do that. Happy to talk through that. But what I do is I work on our investor relations. I work on our community development. Our founder, Dustin Hendrickson, is a fantastic visionary who also really does believe in creating wellness design. For our tenants. Okay. And so we're very tenant centric. Yeah. And then of course, we're in syndication when it comes to real estate. So we are also then making sure that we're keeping an eye out for our investors on good investments. Sure. And so we're building these quality apartments that not only fit and complement the neighborhood and that community that they're in, but they also serve the tenants as a very well designed space, and they serve the investor.
Yeah. Well, cool. And I love that, because when I first met you, I'd never heard of Mailbox Money. A lot of times I think as, let's just call us commoners that drive around our town, you see these big apartment complexes go up, and like, man, who's got the money to build these things or to put them up? And so kind of hearing a bit about Mailbox Money and how that all works and how it flows and brings that to life was very unique and interesting to me, because it's not a world that I'm familiarized with. I call myself that commoner, right? So we're going to definitely dive more into that. But then as our friendship started to grow, and since then we've had a couple meetings in my office, we've shared a couple workouts together, and just it's been fun to really dive in. You've got a very wild from it almost seems, Nate, from one extreme of a career path to the next. And so kind of as I even titled this show Mascot to Mastery, and it's just wild because learning about all the things that you've done. And so normally I just, Nate, I shoot these podcasts and we just shoot off the hip and let's go. But as you and I have gotten to know each other, there's a lot of different things that you've done. And so as unorganized as possible, but yet organized, I've put together some questions to help guide us through a path that's going to really be fun, I think, to just showcase some of the different things that you've done. Because there's some stuff that you've done, I'm like, no, you did that? That was you? It's really cool. And then also, though, provide some really fun insight, lessons on leadership, lessons on joy, lessons on resilience that I think our listeners can take away. Obviously, this is a health and fitness podcast. And if you want to live a healthy and fit life, you need to know how to lead yourself. Yeah, you need to learn how to find joy in the journey, and you need to also know how to be resilient when things aren't going your way. Yeah. So I think this is going to be awesome to dive in. So we're going to dive in. Got myself my trusty little sheet here to keep us rocking. All right, so let's dive into this one. Okay. First off, real quick before we even get into it. Mascot to mastery. Nate, where were you a mascot?
So as you mentioned, a neat eclectic background. So I the first mascot I was the Canaries, the Sioux Falls Canaries, our minor league baseball team. I was a junior in high school. I was a theater guy. I was in theater all the time. My parents were theater individuals, and I had a couple sisters that were good performers as well. And I was really blessed with a fantastic theater instructor and a mentor, Frank Pope at Roosevelt. Anyway, so one of the things, and I put this in some of my communications when I try to kind of help provide just lessons from that. One of the things that Frank Pope would always tell us was, he said, there are plenty of people in the world that are there to tell you no. So you do not have to be one of them.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a person to tell yourself no. So it would be to try out, to audition, to try, right? So anyways, so it's my junior year and we're in a play and I'm chatting with a friend backstage. In fact, we're, I think it was The Miracle Worker, chatting with a friend and I'm asking her what she's doing this weekend. And she goes, oh, I'm going to try out for the Canaries mascot.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I was like that. And she goes, you should totally do it. And I said, oh, well, that'd be kind of fun. I heard you got like $25 a game. And again, in high school, I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of fun.
Hang
Goof
out,
around,
have
throw a
fun with
mask
the crowd.
on. Yeah, exactly. And get $25. Great.
Yeah.
So I end up going. And in that audition, there was a person who had performed a Power Ranger, a person who had performed Barney, and I think a person who had performed for the Timberwolves mascot. Like in this big pot of those. And so I kind of thought, okay, not going to get it. Ended up getting it. And that led on to being able to meet some people. So from there, I then got a scholarship to the University of Nebraska to be their mascot. I worked with the original Philly Fanatic, a gentleman by the name of David Raymond, fantastic guy. Okay. He hired me to work for his company, which was Raymond Entertainment Group. We were a traveling mascot team that we would travel around in the summer and go to minor league baseball games all over the country. Okay. And then I also worked for the NCAA as the official mascot of the NCAA, JJ Jumper, which was which was funny. And we traveled to NCAA basketball games, Division 1, 2, and 3 basketball games all over the country, including Final Fours, tournaments, Summit League kind of things. Yeah. Did that. And then... so those were a lot of the main ones. Have performed a couple. I have performed, SDSUs. I have not done USD Charlie Coyote. And then, of course, a handful of others throughout the area and the country. Yeah. And ended up having a pretty neat set of experiences with all of that.
So a lot of different things come from that. But one of the questions that, always kind of pops in my head when you see that mascot, they are, full suited up. You don't have a clue who's in there. I mean, unless like the commoner, right? Here I am, the commoner again. Yeah. Has no idea. Are you just sweating bullets?
Oh yeah. I mean, it is. As I always say, it's a great it's a great weight loss program as well. You lose about I would lose about 3 to 5 pounds every performance. Yeah. And so in fact, when I was at Nebraska, we actually had an athletic scholarship. So I had trainers, I had nutritionists, I had tutors. Those were very helpful. Yeah. We got all the benefits that all the other college athletes did at Nebraska. And so I would have a trainer. And what was interesting was my freshman year, my nutritionist, we needed to put more bulk on me. I was less than 3% body fat.
You're just losing.
And I'm losing more. And I would rollerblade to our workouts. Yeah. I'd get my workout done and then I'm putting my rollerblades back on and my trainer would come up and she'd be like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm just rollerblading. I'm going to rollerblade back to my dorm. She goes, you need to walk back to your dorm. Like you are burning so much energy and so many pounds in every day that you're, working out. Plus then you perform. She goes, you can't do this extra stuff. And it was just to try to keep that up. Yeah. And so, it was really fascinating on how much you would sweat.
Yeah. So tell me, through Mascot and learning how to be a mascot and entertain the crowd, one thing that I'm kind of wondering here, how did your early experiences shape your leadership philosophy?
Yeah, if you're kind of talking, especially on the side specifically on mascotting and my time in performing, one of the things that I always take with me is the coolest part of a mascot, and I think this is just one of those general things in life that you can take with you. And I think most of the time when it comes to leadership, those general practices that we think of in life are often our best leadership capacities to it. So what I mean by that is, as a mascot, you cheer for. You don't cheer against. You cheer for your team. You cheer for your team to do your best. You continue to cheer on your team as opposed to cheering against another team. And one of the best parts about that, that I think also then took me to that next part of it is, at the end of the day, you're still a guy in a suit. Right? Yeah. You've got gridiron, Heisman Trophy caliber players playing.
Yeah.
And you are sometimes more recognizable in that suit than some of those players. And yet these are some of the best athletes in the world.
Yeah.
And they really are amazing. And again, you're just a guy in a suit. And so what I think I often took with me was there also is a humility that we often should keep within ourselves when it comes to the leadership capacity that we have. Whether you are that star up at the top, whether you are a cog in the middle, whether you're the commoner that isn't familiar with things, right?
Yeah.
Having that ability to remember that we all have a part to play in the experience, I think is one of the best things that when I am at my best as a leader, I am constantly reminding myself that while I have that role to play, and that is a very important role, and I'm proud of that role, and quite frankly, I'm going to be the best at it. I'm going to give it my best.
Yeah.
I am still a piece of that, and I need to always remember that humility to it. And I think that was one of those things that I often could translate really quick into.
So no matter where you're at,
absolutely,
you have a part to do.
Yeah.
And really the best you can do is bring your best.
Absolutely.
No matter what part you're playing. Well, I love that.
Yeah. And and we might talk about it later, but it really kind of allowed me to kind of come up with that expression of be unique and get in line.
Yeah.
Or as you can always flip it, get in line, but be unique.
Yeah.
Being part of something.
Yeah.
And yet offering yourself the reminder that you are of value, you are contributing.
Yep.
But you are contributing to something greater than you, I think is something that when we remember that, I think we're more often at our best.
Yeah. And actually, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's the next thing I had on here, because you are planning to eventually release a book.
Yep.
And one of the kind of phrases that you mentioned is get in line and be unique. And so in that book, you said that you're going to be really focusing on balancing individuality, but also using the systems of whatever organization or team that you're a part of. And so one thing that you talked about too is learning how to be a disruptor and not a destructor.
Yeah.
So help us understand, what do you mean by that?
So, I mean, that's often tough because, right, we want to be disruptors. Because one, it brings out individuality. It also challenges a status quo that I think sometimes unless it's challenged, we don't often do that, right? So how many times have we heard, whether it be in work relations, board of directors relations, volunteering, or just general ways is, well, we've tried that already.
Yeah.
Or no, this is how we do it, right?
Yeah.
That disruptor aspect allows us to be able to say, well, why do we do it this way? Or why haven't we tried again, right? But at the same time, I think a lot of times we have a challenge that is constantly going against us, where we want to continue a goal that, let's say, an organization has. I'm going to take a chamber of commerce just for because it's very common, and obviously I'm very close to that profession.
To lead a chamber.
Yep. And I'm a big believer in it. So in a chamber of commerce, the goal of a chamber of commerce really is to help unite businesses that, if you think about it, are actually competing against each other. They're competing for dollars, right? So they're competing against each other, but the goal of a chamber is to bring them together to ultimately work together for maybe an advocacy that they need to, a betterment of their community, whatever it might be. And in that unification, those businesses still on a day-to-day want to think of their individuality that allows them to be able to, again, compete for those dollars that sometimes are sparse. Now, what we often see is people want to jump out of that line in that system to create their own. They want to be unique. They want to be special. So maybe if you're in line, theoretically, like fifth in line on something, and you're like, well, if I go create my own, I'm going to go up and be first in line. And then I'm going to get followers to come along with me. And the challenge to that, I think, is that might be a disruptive moment. But what it really is it's often destructive, because you're part of a system. You step out of it and you're destructing that system. And even if you create your own, now you've created a system where people are just going to constantly jump out of that line. And so now the unification that we often have in traditions, in in strong organizations gets weakened. And so the difference between that disruptor of shaking the tree versus knocking it and cutting it down, I think is a big difference between a strong organization, a strong community, a strong unification that constantly grows and gets better rather than than hurting itself. I mean, think of, even back to health and fitness, right? If we're doing a workout, we're going to push ourselves. One of the last workouts we did, I remember I kind of made the joke afterwards. I said, well, clearly I haven't done legs for the last 700 days. Like I was in pain. Yeah. But that's because it's tearing part of those muscles. The muscles are going to get better. They're going to get stronger. Yep. But if I go and do way more squats than what I can, if I push way more weights than my body can actually take and I break that down, I'm not disrupting that. I'm destructing that. Right. And so being able to know how do we push ourselves and yet stay unified. I think push that's one of the big
healthy
things.
way. Yeah. And understand that it's good to ask questions of why we do things the way that we do with the mindset of I want to learn so that I can possibly take what I know and then implement it into what you guys do or what we do and make it better. Yeah. Not because I want to do it my way. Yes. But because I want to contribute. So are you doing it to conquer or AKA take over or are you doing it to contribute? Yes. I think would be another great way to look at it.
No, and I think you're right. And I've been blessed enough to be in different positions in my life where I've come in as a leader. And a lot of times you'll see a leader who comes in and sometimes, or a person in a leadership position, and they want to make it their own. Yeah. And the intent behind that is often the difference between whether or not it's going to succeed or not. Yeah. One of the best pieces of advice I got when in those kind of positions was you listen, you learn, and then you lead. Yeah. And so just like you said, is being able to understand that background of it, to be able to then understand the purpose of the direction moving forward. Sometimes people want to put a stamp of their own on it so that they've got their own stamp on it. And then then what happens is a mission creep, and all of a sudden you're now not going along with really that overall goal. And so being able to understand how to listen, how to learn, and then to lead really is, I think, a great and important balance that is also sometimes like a pendulum. You've got to kind of transfer back and forth. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's amazing people that are going to help you along the journey of wherever you step in at as well. I love that. Okay, cool. I love this. This is great. So talking with you as well through all the different things that you've been through, and let's be honest, every single person that's listening or watching, we all face obstacles. Yeah. We all face adversity. So let's talk a little bit about overcoming challenges with optimism. So you've faced a variety of professional challenges, but I really want to dive in, and obviously this show isn't all just about ingraining faith into our listeners and whatnot. But I know you are a man of faith. So my question, I guess, is how has your faith helped you maintain hope and optimism kind of during difficult times?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I would say that those are the most important things, and of course, as the Bible says, faith, hope, and love, right? And so I think of faith translated into that optimism, that hope aspect of that, and then of course love. But what has honestly, when I really, really know I'm struggling, when I really know I'm getting beat down, is when I'm starting to lose hope and optimism. Right? Yeah. Those are the last ones to go. And I'm blessed and grateful to have those as being such strong things. And I'll be honest, again, I'm a happy guy. I'm smiling a lot. There sometimes are people who don't like me because I'm smiling, right? Yeah, like, because they're mad at themselves for whatever reason, right? And so sometimes that one is interesting, how that can sometimes pierce that veil for you, right? When people can be can decide to dislike you because of your hope and your optimism. And what I have always found, and I've been so grateful for it, is every time that I feel like I've gotten to the bottom of it, I all of a sudden realize I've got another layer there. And that's God working for you, right? Yeah. And I think what has been so amazing is that I have had to struggle with that at different times, like we all have. Yeah. And it's relevant and it to each of us. But each time, even when we think we've hit something hard as we're digging on it, there's actually just something more to give there. And we dig a little bit deeper. Yeah. And that has, without a doubt, not only continued to help me go through adversity and different struggles and challenges, but has always allowed me then to be able to dig back to that spot and know that the next challenge I was ready for.
Yeah. And so realizing that, we do always have a little more we can give. Like, I don't even remember exactly where this is used. I think it's something to be with like David Goggins, who can just mentally mindset his way through everything.
Fantastic. Love that guy.
So good. But talking about how when you feel like you've given all you have, really you've only given, it's some like super small amount. It's like, and I don't want to quote it because I'm going to get it wrong, but I want to say it's something like 30%. Like you still have 70% more to give, but our mindset gives up so much faster than what we actually can physically endure. And so it's like realizing that, hey, when you feel like you've hit it, when you've hit rock bottom, a lot of times it's that mind that hits it first. And because the mind is on top, it then makes the rest of your body believe that you can't give anymore. When in all reality, you have a lot more that your body can actually go through and do.
Yes.
And so, just realizing there is that next level. You can keep on pushing. That's great. Let's kind of turn the corner here a little bit. Let's talk about lessons from sports entertainment. Right? We talked about it a little bit already. You've been mascots and you've been an entertainer of sports. So working in sports entertainment must have been obviously full of just memorable moments, right? So many. I bet right now there's so many things even running through your brain. Like I wish there was a way that we could just put a projector of all the different fun things that kind of maybe ran through your brain. I can imagine like you hanging from basketball hoops, or you upside down hanging from the jumbotron. I don't know. I'm just thinking all these crazy things.
There was one time up on the top of Memorial Stadium, but I think it increased our insurance, so I'm not allowed to talk about it very much.
Yeah, all right.
My friends will tease that one.
Push pause. We didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about that. But what's one of the lessons from those days that still influences how you approach leadership today, or how you approach just obstacles or anything today? What's a lesson as you were in sports entertainment? Right?
Yeah.
And you kind of already touched on it, but give us another one that still influences how you do it today.
Honestly, I would take actually on the business side of it, right? And so if you think about it, sports entertainment is, what we often think about when we think of professional sports, we think of the glamour of NBA and NFL and NHL and PGA and all this amount of money that exists within these industries. Yeah. But also there are, of course, a lot of supporting industries. There are a lot of minor leagues that are just scraping by to be able to do it, right? And so I think what was really, really fantastic lessons for me, again, was I came into it in the aspect of being a performer and being that mascot for this minor league team. I was able to see the amount of work that stadium facility individuals would be doing, the field crew would be doing. I was changing in the locker room as the same places where they were going in between to go into their locker room, where they could, shower after a long day's work and then put on a nice set of clothes and then go out and have to work with sponsors and visitors and everything like that, right? So the long, hard part of the days. And so anyway, so I say all of that by saying, number one, it taught me it flexed another muscle that allowed me to think creatively and think outside the box, to also know and understand that there's a business aspect to that. There is a bottom line that you got to be able to figure out when and what you can do on that. Yeah. That was one of those most important things that it taught, was just constantly figure out the challenge, figure out the problem, so that you can continue to work towards that goal, which was, we got to work at a place where people paid money to come and have joy. Yeah. And so that was really, really special to be able to put yourself in perspective to that, as well as understand what the responsibility was. And that allowed me to be able to balance sort of being in the moment and also thinking practically. We talked about, success and yet at the same time content. Right? Hey, season's not going that great, but today we're working on the game. Today we're working on this performance. Today we're working on this or that. And so those, I think, are some of the the really, really great lessons.
This just kind of popped into my head. I don't know if it pertains to a whole lot or if it'll add much value, but you think about that. And it's like the upkeep of a stadium, right? Like you said, the field, the maintenance, all the things to keep this stadium looking like it does when we walk in to watch that, 2, 3, 4, 5 hour event, that game. And we see a 2, 3, 4, 5 hour event or game, and it's like amazing. That's the highlight reel, right? What we don't see is all the work that goes in to make the field look the way it looks.
Yeah.
All the work that goes in to make sure that all those little chairs are working the way that they're supposed to be working, that all the vendor stations have all the electricity and the power and the things that they need. And what that really just kind of made me realize as a business owner is like, man, isn't that the truth in business, but then even in life, and then in health and fitness, you look at it, it's like how much work goes in to really achieving the goals that we're after. And we just see that little short highlight reel. And then we expect that our life should be that highlight reel. We expect that, man, like, these guys, look at them. They're out there having fun. They're getting paid to play a game. That can be a thought that we have in our head.
You say that. And so one of the things I think about that also, again, kind of translated into that was there were two things. One is when I've spoken with those who wanted to be in the internship programs of that, I would always give them one example of something that I would, a piece of advice. And they often would say that was something. So I'm going to mention that in a second because I always just loved it. But one of the other things about that, like you just said, is you can relate to it, right? As a business owner, as an employee to something, there's always a chair in the stadium. I'm kind of thinking of this one off the top of my head, but there's always a chair in the stadium that could be a little tighter, right? There is always a line that can move a little faster. And so one of the things also, the pleasure that I got was, you know how we always have the expression, I wish I could be a fly on the wall in that room? As a mascot, you're a fly on that wall, right? You are the center of it. But at the same time, you're watching who you're playing with, but you're also looking at your surroundings. And I'm watching people without them knowing it. And so one thing I started to really pick up was recognizing that empathy that people either have and practice or don't practice. And it allowed me to start reading people, I think, a little bit different. And so, for example, I would you have an individual who maybe is always short-tempered with staff members. You have an individual who's short-tempered to service staff members, right? When I'm taking somebody out to dinner, if I'm interviewing them as an employer, if I'm taking out even as a partner in something, I'll watch how they treat the serving staff. And if they aren't treating serving staff with respect, with understanding, even with some patience and some grace, how do you think they're going to treat others, right? And so by seeing how we treat those who we expect a lot, but we don't offer much grace to it, I think it gives us a chance to kind of check in within ourselves. And so that, that's something that I was able to see a lot of times is you'd see some who would have patience for it. Didn't mean their expectation wasn't good, and didn't mean that they just didn't mind that it was, but their grace that they would give people, how they would treat people, I think is really, really something that I knew that when I'm at my best, I've got that grace, I've got that empathy. And so that really was something to
How can that help you wherever you're at in your journey? Let's say that you do have some really big goals that you want to achieve, whether it's career goals, financial goals, relational goals, whatever. How can having that mindset mentality help you be able to realize that you might not be where you want to be yet, but you don't have to be where you want to be to still act with that mentality? How can that help?
For me, I think it's like you say is I think setting those goals. Okay. There's a content that we can have in each day. I also think one of the most important things is allowing yourself to understand what will make you content. Right? What are your expectations of those goals? What are your expectations of the day? What is a successful day? And if it is not, then set your boundaries. Communicate your boundaries. Someone should not have to apologize by saying, hey, you know what? That's really not the service that I would expect at this place, at this game, whatever it is. So I'm going to go somewhere else. It's sort of like that expression of, leave the table. Don't sit at the table that you're not welcome. And so by setting those boundaries allows you, I think, to offer grace to those who might not be achieving it, but they also it also allows you to set that boundary to not say, this is okay. And I'm going to just let this keep going. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that often can happen because I think when we don't do that, I think what we do is we don't set that boundary. We still have the expectation, and now it's just building, right? And it's building and it's going to blow up. And so I think that's one of the things that we can do in whatever we're doing in our life and setting in those goals, like you say, personal, professional, everything in between, allowing yourself to define what the little win is and what the big win is.
Yeah.
And celebrate those little wins. And again, what was meant to get done gets done, and let everything be taken to the rest.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. That is good. I want to talk a bit about, we talked, when you're going through some of your valleys, when you're going through some of your struggles, your obstacles, you mentioned just the importance on really like having your why dialed in. And so I want to talk about that because I think that pertains really to every level of your life or area of your life. So especially as it pertains to kind of health, fitness, but then just getting through the valley, how can we really identify or start to know our why, right? Because sometimes it's like, well, I don't really know what my why is. Like I want to achieve X, Y, Z.
Yeah. So
how can you start to identify your why, and how is that going to help bring clarity and purpose to an individual's life?
Yeah. I think that, it's sort of, there's obviously a lot of expressions out there that kind of help us to connect with that.
Yeah.
For me, if you're looking at even just an angle, if you're going down 1 mile down the road, but you're off just two degrees, right? You're not going to achieve that goal. And so you need to be able to be dialed in on that. And at the same time, I think what's really beautiful when it comes to truly knowing your why is a big definition, but it also is very specific of what that is. And so it allows you to be able to kind of get rid of the, I want to say kind of superficial stuff, right?
Okay.
Like, hey, I want nice cars. I want this nice. I want that nice. Allowing yourself to truly understand what that is. And then the why. One of the things that I think of when I think of that is, and again, I'm going to get it wrong, but there's a hierarchy of happiness.
Okay.
And I learned this in college, and it basically, and again, I'm going to say words that I definitely know are not correct. So anyone with actual education is going to say, no, it's pronounced this way. It's the ESO, it's the ISO.
Yeah, you were the mascot.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the educator.
Again, do actions, don't talk.
Yeah.
So, but it really is the 4 levels of happiness. The first level are those physical things, right? The second level is caring for someone else. The third level is someone else caring for you. And the fourth level then is basically recognizing that there is a being out there, whatever your faith may tell you, that is greater than you, and that you are loved within that being, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, that first level is the achievement, right? You and I have talked about, I love my Bronco.
Yeah.
I love being able to drive in the sunshine. I love the sunshine hitting my face, right?
Yeah.
Take the top off, and I'm up high.
Yeah.
I love having, the new iPhone.
Yeah.
I enjoy those nice things. That's okay to have it, right? I like being able to care for somebody. I'm fulfilled. When we've built our friendship, it is fulfilling to have a great conversation with you and to walk away being like, wow, you know what? I think you really enjoyed that conversation. It was really fun for us to talk, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to contribute to somebody.
Yeah.
The next is we want someone to contribite to us, someone to love us. And so, of course, we find that in relationships, and we want them to love us. And then, of course, that faith that we have. The challenge in that is each of those actually have a place. Each of those have an importance. But the challenge that we have is when we put if only in front of any one of them or in between any of them. If only I can get that Bronco. If only I can have this Bronco. If only I can have that new iPhone, right?
Yeah.
If only I could just care for that person who I just know they like me. If only I could do that. If only she could love me. If only.
Yeah.
And then, if only I sit on this, sinking boat Yeah. And I know that God's going to rescue me, even though he's sending a bunch of other boats to rescue me, right? Mm-hmm. That ability in being able to have that balance. And so when I say that and I go back to the why, recognizing what is that 4 levels of happiness for you and what is it truly? What does that look like? Why are we here? What is the legacy we want to leave? What is our purpose? Yeah. And so again, for me, like many, it's being a father, it's providing to my community, it's contributing to the world of which I live in, whatever that definition of that world is, whether it's within my house, whether it's within the block, the community, the state, the country, the world.
And I feel like we're going to release this on an episode after ours. I sat down with Tom Henderson.
Oh yeah.
And it was just awesome. We talked about relationships and whatnot, and that'll be after our episode drops. But we talk in that episode, we talk about how a lot of times we wait because we think that there has to be a perfect scenario that has to play out before we can start doing something. I think the analogy that I used when Tom and I were talking was in our relationship with our wife. Yep. It's like, well, if my wife did X, Y, or Z, then I could show her love this way. Yep. And it's like, well, what if you just started showing her love the way that you would if X, Y, or Z? And then watch, you start showing her love that way. Mm-hmm. And then X, Y, or Z starts to just naturally happen. Yes. And so with you knowing your why, it's like, it doesn't, I don't care if it's actually already happening, but I know that I want it to happen. I know why I want it to happen. And so I'm going to live my life this way because when I live my life this way, it will then attract my why to me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I think it's another great example to that is the serenity prayer, right?
Sure.
When you know your why, that serenity prayer really makes more sense because it allows you to be able to say, look, I want to, let me worry about the things I can control. Yeah. Let me not worry about the things I can't control. Yeah. And let me know the difference. Yeah. Because then that way, when we're going towards that why, we're recognizing, you know what? The transactional aspect of if my wife will do this, then I'm going to do this. Yeah. That's not connected to my why. My why is to be the best that I can be in this. Yeah. And so I am going to do that. This is what I can control. This is what I can't control.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll even take that now, and I've even used your why, my why, to like these episodes. Sometimes I could go into this and it's like, man, what do I want our listeners to get? And the truth is like, I can't control what they get. Right. I don't know where they're at when they're watching this, where their head's at, where their mindset is at. But what I can control is the quality of conversation that you and I have. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, what do I want to get out of this? And I want to have a great conversation with my good buddy Nate. Yep. And if we end up dropping some type of knowledge or something that's either entertaining or valuable or educational for the listeners, that's all a bonus. Right. 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 And so this time right here, like, why? Because I want to connect. Yeah. And when we were connecting, when we weren't on the microphones, I took away so many great things. It's like, man, I just wonder if somebody watching, listening, or viewing this thing could take away something to help them in their life. Let's talk.
Well, and I think that's another great example because I think that, to those listeners, you do hope, right? You're hoping that you're providing something of value, but also at the same time, it is also of their responsibility and opportunity to go, all right, what is something I can take away from this? Like, again, they might be listening and be like, this guy, Nate, why is he on here? Like, this guy's an idiot. Why do they, Sure. They could also, they'll be thinking, all right, yeah, this guy's an idiot. I wonder how he thinks and who's someone I know that's kind of like him, and how can I understand that person a little bit more, right? Sure. Like, I mean, again, so that one might be a far stretch. If you're listening and you're like, yeah, no, he's an idiot, you can also confirm that. Like, as I say, I'm a recovering moron. That's just all there is to it.
I think we all are in some degree. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what happens when you take the mascot suit off. Well, now people know who you are. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yep. It didn't matter if you had that mascot suit on. Let's dive into endurance and self-care. Oh, sure. As it pertains, you let me know that even in your, if I can ask, how old are you?
43. I was even thinking about that because I was wishing happy birthday to some buddies earlier.
And so you said, though, that you turned 40, and in your 40s, you actually, so in the last 3 years, you actually got to suit up as Herbie. Yes. So you're in your 40s. And you said back in the day, you're losing 3 to 5 pounds every time you put on a performance.
Oh, yeah.
So you're here, you're in your 40s. What do you have to do to take care of yourself and make sure that you are keeping accountable your health and your fitness.
Yeah.
So that now you're in your 40s, you can go put on the Herbie mascot and go do the thing.
Yeah. That's it. It reminds you a lot more, or that song means a lot more, that Toby Keith song, I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was, kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, for content on that, it's the University of Nebraska redesigned their Herbie Husker back to more of the traditional design that they had.
Okay.
Some fun history off of that is, so when I went to college in 2000 to 2004, there's two mascots for Nebraska. You have Little Red, big inflatable 8-year-old boy. He's 6 feet tall, or no, 8 feet tall.
Okay.
And then inflatable one, and then you have Herbie Husker, which basically, especially when I started, he was basically a short, fat farmer.
Okay.
And so, like, visually they're actually not complementary to each other, because the short, fat farmer looks kind of funny walking around, but then the 8-year-old boy, 8 foot tall, looks even funnier, and so he just looks like a short, fat farmer. So anyways, we redesigned him a couple of years into it to more of a muscular kind of looking like the Michigan State Spartan mascot. Anyways, they redesigned him then in 2022 back to the farmer version, but a little bit more build. So kind of a little mesh in between.
Okay.
So through the years, the current coach of the Nebraska Spirit Squad is a dear friend. She was a dancer when I was on the team. Cheer, mascot, and dance are all grouped together as a team. So she was a teammate, and now is a coach, and is doing a fantastic job building that program back up from all these different things. So anyways, she's asked me to work with the mascots every now and then. Yeah. In, I think it was 2019, I ended up going to the Big Ten Media Days as Herbie out in Chicago. And so that was 2019. And then in 2022, they reintroduced Herbie to the spring football game, and I performed in that. Yeah. That was really cool. And so the endurance side of that is you just got to be ready for that. And I'll talk about that in a second. But here's one other cool part. And this is something I love sharing, and what I challenge everybody to do. Yeah. Again, I got to perform that when I was in college, did it everything from 90,000 plus, the Rose Bowl game, the Rose Bowl parade, all these different things. Now, of course, you fast forward, I'm married. I got 3 kids. I got a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 7-year-old. Yeah. You never really think that your kids are going to be able to watch you perform, especially that youngest, that 5-year-old. Yeah. And having them get to see me perform, I tell you, is one of the biggest blessings in the world. Yeah. And I say that when it comes back to the question of hope and faith, is you got to keep those wins. You got to keep those nuggets, because when life beats you down, you gotta find those things to go, gosh, I'm really, really lucky, right? Yeah. So taking care of yourself physically is really one of those things. Now, you might not be jumping into a mascot suit, but I take care of myself to so that I can have more energy to play with my kids. When my middle daughter wants to play volleyball, I want to be helpful to them in that. For me, I've never been motivated by working out to look good. Sure. Which obviously is understandable. I don't really have much to work with on this. So why would you try to, fix that rusty car? But the reality is that I want to be able to be fit enough. I want to be able to be healthy. I don't want to be a strain on my family. I want to be able to have the energy. I don't want to be the first one who goes, I'm too tired. Right. So for me, I have to find my motivation. So I go and I set a goal of running in a half marathon. Sure. Not because I have any enjoyment in it. Yeah. But it's because I know that if I set that goal, I'm scared to death that if I'm not prepped for it and ready for it, I'll hurt myself. Yeah. And so that's why I go out and run. That's why I go out and run on that next day and the next day and the next day. So setting those goals to understand my why is to be a healthy, ready father, to be available for his kids. And also every now and then maybe be able to show them something I used to could do. Yeah, right? Absolutely. And so being able to be ready for that on the physically fit side of it is why I do that. So then I know that my why is not being motivated by looks, a good looking body. Yeah. My why is because I want them. So I need to figure out what motivates me in that. And what motivates me is fear that I'll fail. Yeah. And so that signing up for something that I'm scared of is why then I'll push to it. Yep. Yeah. Then the other reason of it too is, I've definitely gone through some fun challenges, especially the last couple of years. Yeah. And the reality is I had a good friend of mine. I was telling him even more details that even, public wouldn't know about. And he looks at me and goes, Nate, how the heck are you still living? Right. How did you survive this mentally? Sure. And I said, because I kept taking care of my body.
Yeah.
Because I knew that my mind needed it.
Yeah.
Because my mind was getting beat down. My heart was getting beat down. My hope and my faith was getting beat down. So I needed my body to lift that up.
Yeah.
And so I would push my body so that my body was taking care of it. And then when I could get through that, my heart, my hope, my faith, my optimism.
You're saying here that you can even use your physicality, your body, to be that thing that you lean on when your mind and your heart and your hope are taking a hit.
Yep.
And man, and that's so important, because it's like, if your mind, your heart, your hope are taking a hit and you're also unfit.
Yeah. If you're you're struggling for breath, that's gonna make you sad on every way. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You know, I feel like we really could talk hours, hours, 3 hour, 4 hour episode. Guys, buckle up. We've only got 3 hours left and we'll be done. Right. No, we are going to wrap here real soon. I want to talk though, because one thing that did intrigue me was this mailbox money, right? I'm a commoner, right? Yep. I'm a commoner. Yep. And so the thing that I wanted to know about that is, I need education.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I just don't get it. With mailbox money, is there a way that a commoner can get involved? Or maybe someone watching or listening isn't a commoner and they kind of know a little bit about this field. With mailbox money, how can the community or myself, or like, why does it benefit me to know about mailbox money?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. So you know, again, as I mentioned, we really are helping to work on solving that modern workforce housing crisis that we have. And so one thing that we're working on, and we've been able to do it we've been able to dial in, because we have fantastic partners, our financial partners, Boardwalk Wealth down in Dallas, our construction partners, Veldco. They are amazing at what they do. And then of course, Dustin Hendrickson, our owner, really visions the property, and, you know, with our ears kind of on the ground and knowing the communities and stuff, we're able to really, again, add to the community by building up these nice buildings that provide a good home for individuals. And so if you think about it, if you think of it as an employer, you want your employees to be in a good, healthy, safe place. You want them to have a good place to go and call home. You want them to have it so that when they're working at work, they're focused on that. When they're home, they're focused on that next level of their dreams, that motivation of what they have, right? And so that aspect of building good quality housing in our community that also is affordable, and finding ways for us to be able to continually advance and make it attractive. And so different ways that people can be part of it really is, one, help support those multifamily buildings that are there. If you are looking to invest dollars, invest in your community. Invest in those that want to invest back into the community, and hold each other accountable on where those investments are, on how good they are, and what we're doing with those dollars, because that helps us to raise that tide that helps raise all of us. And so again, there's a number of great developers out there. We're blessed and grateful to be one of those that really continue to build good units, good properties, and also have good design in it, so that again, our tenants have a good place to live.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting, because like I said, you drive down the road and you see all these apartment complexes, and sometimes, or multi-housing complexes, and sometimes you can think, is like, holy smokes, like so many of them are popping up. Well, that's a sign of our community growing. And we need that, because we need the workforce, and we need to be able to have somewhere for these people to live. And like you said, I've had team members that haven't had the best housing situation.
It's tough.
It affects how they show up at work, because now they're like worried about what's happening at their house or whatever. And then when they're at home, they can't even relax because they're worried about the neighborhood they live in. So it is very important. And so, that's just cool, I think, to learn more about mailbox money and what it is and what you guys do.
Absolutely. And again, as you mentioned, I think everybody can play a part in that. And I think, you kind of go back to that, Mascot days, be a cheerleader for each other, right? Don't cheer against each other. I mean, there's going to be one thing might do this different, or might not appease to this specific population right at the moment, or this one at that moment, but help cheer each other on. And it's amazing at how much more you can get done by cheering for that moment rather than cheering against.
I love that. I think as I look back on this conversation that we had, you saying that was, and you said it early on in the conversation, but that was one of the things that stuck in my head that I took away from our conversation is, man, no matter what, cheer for your team, cheer for your success, cheer for their success, cheer for it.
Yep.
Because that only brings out positivity.
Yeah.
That only brings out good. Let's kind of leave them with one great thing, and then just really talking to them about fun and fulfillment in life. I want to talk with them about how we can have fun, being present, and finding joy in where we're currently at.
Yeah.
No matter what. I don't know if they're having a good day or a bad day.
Yeah.
No matter if it's a good or a bad day, how can we make sure that they are having the ability to find joy in where they're currently at?
Yeah. So, I think, and this is not something new, but I think it is definitely, give thanks. Tell yourself, remind yourself 2 or 3 things you're thankful for. That's not something new. So I'm going to give you one other one.
Yeah.
That is,
but it's great.
It is. Yeah, exactly. Like, remind yourself what you're lucky to have. But here's then the other part. And this, again, I'll tie back to that mascot world of it is love yourself. Like, again, if I'm out performing and I'm in a crowd of anything from, 50 people to, again, 110,000 people or 7 million watching on TV.
Yeah.
If I don't want to be that mascot, if I don't want to be the character that I am, do you think I can get anybody else to smile? Right? Do you think I can put any joy out there? I've got to love who I am and who I am in that moment. Now, do I want to be that mascot for the rest of my life? Do I want to be that professional mascot? Some can make a really good career out of it.
Sure.
But I'm loving myself at that moment. And every time I can do that, it's a lot easier to spread joy to other people.
Yeah.
And so you've got to love yourself. You've got to love the character that you are.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't have more hopes of wanting to get better. Doesn't mean you can't hold yourself accountable, but give yourself some slack.
Yeah.
Love yourself. Love the moment you're in, and you will spread joy around whatever circle you're around.
Yeah. I love that. One thing that I've been doing personally for the last now couple months, every morning I have a little morning journal that I write in. And one of the questions that I answer every morning is, what's one thing I can be proud and grateful of myself for today?
Yeah, absolutely.
And some days I'll tell you, some days it's harder than other days. Like, man, what am I proud of myself for? Like, I don't know, I haven't done a lot of great things, and you think about it, but it's like, no, that's not the point.
Right. Yep.
What's one thing I can be proud of myself for?
Yep.
And then it's like, man, and the other day I wrote something goofy down. Like, I went and I played shuffleboard with my son rather than stay upstairs while he plays his video games.
Yep.
And it was just, what am I proud of myself for? I'm proud of myself for taking the time to go down and play shuffleboard with my boy.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's like, man, okay, cool. Now do something else like that today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that. Nate, great stuff. What a journey. Mascot to mastery to leadership, making sure that you have what it takes to get through those lows. But thank you so much for taking the time and just spending it here with us, giving some knowledge to our viewers, our listeners. But man, is there anything else, any last words you want to leave them with?
No, I thank you so much for doing this and these conversations. You're just a fantastic person to chat with. I get to watch, your guys' podcasts a lot. And so I really appreciate the discussions. Again, pleasure to be part of it. And again, thanks for tuning in and hope everybody has a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, hey, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share this episode. And I'm going to drop some links in the description, just different ways that you can connect with Nate, that you can learn more about him. Maybe you will find some cool pictures of him, when he was a mascot. But I'll drop some links so you can kind of creep up on Nate and figure more out about him. But you guys have an awesome day today, and make sure that you tune in for the next episode. Otherwise, go out, be great today, you guys. Be proud and love yourself. Bye, guys.